You are tuning in to Solitary RPG, Arizona's #1 solo RPG math rock station. Let's get into this. Welcome to Solitary RPG. Today's program is brought to you by Ghost Transmission. This is a new product put out by Gustavo Caleo, and everything you see here was handcrafted by him. I want to get this out first. If you go to itch.io, I will put a link in the video. You can pick up this product, but it will only be the player's manual in these 3 scenarios. Everything else is not available on itch.io. Maybe as time goes on, this will be released, but for right now, it's just the core information. However, I like this idea. I will be sharing all the cool stuff that was made, but this gives you an opportunity to go out and make your own cool stuff for this game. I still feel that RPGs are personal, and adding your own personal flair to an RPG can be a lot of fun. And the additional things that were made are just little trinket kind of things, but make your own and get a little creative in the hobby outside of just coming up with a story or a scenario. Really go out and make your own things. But let's dive into everything that was sent to me. There's only one thing on the table right now that is not part of Ghost Transmission, and that is this 3D printed cassette tape holder, and this is for Caves and Catacombs. If you're not familiar with all of Gustavo's work, he has made a lot of cool games, the big one being Caves and Catacombs. This particular game was inspired by another one of his cool games called Tiny Towns. I'm really excited about this mini version of Caves and Catacombs. It was put together really nicely. This is 3D printed. You can see all the striations from the printer. The cover for the case contain all the core rules, the way it folds out like this. And then each of the little booklets inside, you have quest creation, traps and enemies, spells and equipment, character creation, and dungeon generation, treasure, and optional rules. And these are just little booklets that you can just take with you on the go and play his game, Caves and Catacombs. And the reason this is sparking an interest in me is I'm still working on my adventure inspired by Caves and Catacombs, and I will be sharing my creation during the month of October. That is going to be Solo RPG Month. I'm part of a small group of people that are going to be contributing for Solo RPG Month, and I'm going to be talking about how I went about creating an adventure for this game and sharing my basically what I created. So that's going to be a lot of fun, but that is the only thing that is not part of Ghost Transmission, so we will set that off to the side. Let's go over these little pieces first. These are playlists. So you got 3 different playlists for each one of the scenarios, and there's a QR code and the Spotify link. So if you want to download this playlist while you're playing scenario 1, just to have some background music to get you inspired. My music taste is different looking at the names of the bands and the songs shared on the scenario. However, I am still interested in listening to these lists to expose me to new music. That is one of the things I like to do, is be exposed to new music. But you have one for scenario 1, scenario 2, and also scenario 3. So these are just neat little cards. You could go out and find a simple image of a cassette, because this is kind of a throwback game to when we used to collect stereo components and make our own tapes and sit around and listen to music on a stereo, kind of like having a phone with a cord back in the day. We didn't have portable devices until Walkman came out, and they weren't the greatest. But yeah, so find yourself an image of a cassette, front and back. Give yourself a title, print it out, make your own list, and then share it with the community. For us older folks, back in the day, making a mixtape was a big deal. And we would make a tape and give it to a friend or someone we were dating. We also sent tapes back and forth in the mail and shared music with others. Even bands like Metallica started out that way, creating tapes and then sending them out to fans. It used to be in the back of magazines where you could contact people for tapes, and newspapers and things like that, little fanzines that would float around in the community. And you could do that for yourself. This is a cool little bookmark just to keep your place. Same thing, it's just a cassette image with ghost transmissions on it. Looks like it's just glued together on some heavy cardstock so it doesn't get beat up. Again, this is all handcrafted by the author, and I think this stuff is just fantastic. You can make your own. This little green cassette is just a little notepad, nothing too fancy. Corners are cut round. You can just get a round cutter or just cut them by hand. And it's just a place to keep your notes. I think that's great. I love these old label maker stickers and Solitaire RPG, Ghost Transmission. Just a neat little touch because we didn't have fancy label makers back in the day. And then these are just some stickers that were printed out, probably on a regular computer. You can print stickers out on a regular computer, just like photo sticker paper. And you can make your own radio station, and these cool little stickers were just made. Nothing out of the world requiring you to have to know how to use like Adobe Art or Adobe Studios or any kind of software. These are just images with little images put on top of them, which is kind of cool. This is the one that really struck a lot of nostalgia for me. This is an actual cassette case, and it actually says TDK in the corner. So he must have found some old cassette tapes. He cut out the little section that you would put the cassette reels in, and then he added in these are the scenario books, and they're just all of the prompts that you're going to be responding to as you play the game, and they're just kind of this mini version. I think if anything was going to be added to the itch.io page for download, these would be really cool to add to it. That way you can take the game on the go with you and play on vacation, things like that, or just make your own. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the gift that was sent to me, is that it was all handcrafted. It was made with passion. I can tell by the quality of products that were used. This is a hard cardstock cover, and it looks like he used solid core paper, which means the color goes all the way through the paper and you don't got the white edges. And these are just printed out. Now that we've gone over the items that were sent to me, we're going to dive into Ghost Transmissions and basically what is the flavor of the game and how do you play it. This little paragraph explains everything. You've come across an old stereo system, and either you're a tinkerer, likes to fix old broken things, or it's something that you picked up. Maybe you are going down a little bit of nostalgia road and you find this old stereo system or come in possession of it. And as you're using the stereo system, well, you start getting strange signals or voices coming across your stereo system, and it can kind of take you down a different road in life, and you're trying to uncover or solve the mystery of why the stereo is doing that. That's the premise of the game. This was originally a scenario written for Little Town, and the author felt there was enough in that scenario to create a standalone game, and that's what this turned into be. What do you need to play the game? Pretty straightforward. You need 2d6. You need a deck of cards, including the jokers. You're going to need something to write on, a journal or some scrap paper, and something to write with. And you are all set. So this makes it a very small game that doesn't take up a lot of space on your table, or something you can take with you if you're traveling, which is really cool. Before you get turned off by the fact that it's a journaling game, I'm going to challenge you to change your perspective about journaling games. All a journaling game is a spark table or a prompt table that we use in our solo games. In a spark table, you roll a couple dice, you get a couple words to spark your imagination so that you can add that to your story or your adventure that you're playing. A journaling game just expands that. Instead of getting a couple words, you get sentences or paragraphs, and you're going to respond to them. By playing a journaling game, you can come up with all kinds of adventure seeds and information that you can take from your journaling game and then incorporate that into a regular RPG. And that's why I like journaling games. I will sit there, I will play them, and I get all these little crazy ideas that I write down on paper while I'm playing them, and then I can use that information in a regular RPG. So think about journaling games as more of a tool to spark your imagination to help you create adventures for your regular RPG games. That's my challenge. Now that you have an understanding of what you need and what the game's about, there is a warning. This game does deal with horror elements, and if you are not feeling comfortable with where the game is taking you, maybe it's bringing up old memories or real life events that you have experienced, either stop playing or tone it down. Change the direction of the game if it is getting too real for you or it's making you uncomfortable. You can make this rated G and just have a lot of fun. Maybe the spirit or the voice is bringing you better memories or happy memories, or you can make this rated R where you're going down a road that you are not having a good time with. So you have to decide which way your character is going to go. But you are trying to solve the mystery behind the stereo, but it will have an opportunity to take you down to the horror elements of these style games. The rules are all laid out here. You're going to keep track of certain things during the game. You're going to keep track of your instability. So when your character reaches a certain threshold of instability, this is when bad things start happening. There's going to be a chart you're going to roll on. Depending on what you roll, you're going to add that element into your game. There's going to be a time limit, so this is a very set game. You're going to only have so much time to play it. Once you've reached that time limit, you got a chart you're going to roll on, the game ends, and you just roll on the chart. Whatever the results are, that's how your game ends, which this part of it really can create the adventure seed that I was talking about with journaling games that you can incorporate. Maybe you go play Little Town now, and you add it into your RPG game, and this just becomes part of that story thread. There is a chart here to give you an idea if you want a very easy game, or a difficult game, and the items that you're going to be tracking for that. There is a third one that you're going to track, and those are clues. It's not listed here, but you are going to collect clues. Once you feel you have enough clues to solve the mystery about why your stereo seems to be having these voices or this kind of noise and things that are going on, you can roll on a chart, and if you're successful, you've solved it, and you'll just narrate that out. How are you going to collect those things? That's going to be based on the cards that you draw. Each suit will be linked to one of those things that you're tracking, except diamonds. Diamonds are just going to be events that don't help you solve the mystery. They just kind of help you expand your narrative. So any diamond cards that you draw, those will expand your narrative. When you draw a club card, that is when something disturbing or some distress is going to happen to your character, and you're going to mark 1 instability. When you draw a spade card, something dangerous is happening, and this is where you're going to mark your time. And when you draw a hearts card, this is when you find a clue, and that's how you're going to collect your clues. Jokers, these are going to be something that can actually help your character. Whenever you draw a joker, you can actually decrease your instability or your time limit by 1. There's a little footnote down here about jokers. If the joker is the first card that you draw, you can just set that to the side or reshuffle it into your deck, because they are supposed to be something that benefits you. Your first card drawn, that's not going to do a whole lot for you, but setting it to the side and using it when you need it is something that you might want to consider. And then these are the charts that you're going to roll on. So for solving your mystery, once you've collected enough clues and you think you can solve the mystery, you kind of have an idea of solving the mystery, you're going to roll 2d6 plus the number of clues that you have minus the time limit. And whatever you roll, you'll just refer to this chart and then respond accordingly. Accumulated stress, this is your instability. Once you've reached 4 or 5, your character starts succumbing to the horror of the game that you're creating. And at the beginning of each turn, when you draw a new card, you're going to roll 2d6 and refer to this chart and add this element into your game. The final ruin is once your instability reaches 6, your character succumbs completely to the horror of your game. You roll a d6, and this will be the end of your game, and you just take whatever your result is and add that into your narrative. End of the line. Once your time limit reaches 12, it is the time's up. And then this is when everything bad happens to your character. And what you're going to do is you're going to roll on this chart, and this will be what happens. And then optionally, you roll on this chart, and what you're creating is the next adventure if you play Ghost Transmissions again. However, now your spirit's in that stereo system, which is just a cool concept. But you can also take this end result and add it to a regular RPG and play it out that way. So think about this as maybe an adventure design that you can use in a later game. To get started, you are going to create your character. Now, first, I just want to make a quick comment about the art that was created for this game. This kind of takes me back to the days of buying my old stereo system and getting the user manuals, and they had all these images of your stereo system in there drawn out, kind of like this architectural style drawing. And it was, back then, didn't think much of it, but today, looking at this, it just takes me back down to when I was a child. But you're just going to start rolling up your character. I had so much fun rolling up my character. It just was a blast. And all you're really going to do is start rolling on some charts and answering these questions, creating your beginning story. And once you've had that, then you can actually jump into the game and start playing your game. I am going to read you my opening story, and we're going to take one turn. One of the reasons I don't cover a lot of journaling games on my channel is they are about the discovery. You want to go out there and discover it for yourself, and I don't want to spoil it. There's not a lot of rules to journaling games, a little character creation, and then you just start pulling, so there's not a lot to cover, but they are a lot of fun. And I will read you my story because everyone's going to create their own character and pull from that, so I don't feel I'm spoiling anything. But we'll just take one turn just so that you can get a sense of the basic concepts. So we will get into that. After character creation, you just have a little bit of information here on the gameplay and the game flow and some little footnotes here to help you with it. But yeah, that's the basic rules. There's not much to it. I really appreciate the art, especially this little electronic chart or diagram talking about all of the components of a stereo system, but added in there some like little handwritten notes and then these weird symbols, which I have no idea what they mean. I feel this is the spirit that has taken over my stereo system. So that's the basic concepts behind Ghost Transmissions and how you play it and what you're trying to accomplish. The other thing we have here are the 3 different scenarios. There's not much to these. It's going to talk about it being scenario 1, give you a little introduction, and then from there it's just going to be all the prompts, also with some more of that cool art thrown in here, talking about all the different elements. So we have just 3 different scenarios. I do not want to spoil those for you. I am now going to read to you my opening story, and we're going to take one turn. Be upfront, my story deals with the loss of loved ones, and this may be too much for some people, so if that is the case for you, please stop listening. I was okay exploring these concepts, and some of this story is real to my life as a child growing up. Some of this is made up. So I'm not going to tell you which is which. I will let you figure that out on your own. But yeah, let's get into this. I'm going to just read my story to you and we will take it from there. My character's name is Morgan. After high school, he joined the military to get the money he needed to attend college. He didn't come from a wealthy family and felt this was the best option. He packed up his belongings and put them in storage. He kissed his girlfriend and his family goodbye and departed to boot camp. While serving his country, his girlfriend moved on and his parents' lives continued. Morgan left the military after 4 years and moved on, going to college to get a business degree. While in college, Morgan faced the death of his father, causing him to start valuing life for all it has to offer. After college, he started living his best life. Every moment was important, and he didn't waste any of it. As he got older, he got married, purchased a home, and they were talking about having children. One day at work, he received a call he was not ready for. His mom had an accident and lost her life. Morgan was close to her, and the news took its toll on him. It took him months after her death before he began clearing out the home to sell it. When going through some old boxes, he found his old Harman Kardon stereo system. He thought it was stolen from his storage unit, and seeing his old stereo took him back to being a child and so many great memories. Sitting in his room, listening to music with his friend and then girlfriend. Morgan decided to set the old stereo up in the den of his home. This is the one spot in his home he can just listen to music and get away from others. He could look at old photos and remember a different life. Morgan often wondered what his life would have been like if he made different decisions when he was younger. He has success, but what happened to the rebel that thought he could rule the world with his friends? What happened to them all, and how did their lives turn out? Where's the first love of his life, and what is she doing now? While he was out making the most of his life, he left his past behind him, making new friends and living a different lifestyle. The one box he kept from his storage unit was a small collection of records and tapes. They were not in the best of shape, but they had meaning to him. After setting up the stereo and powering on all the different components, all the lights came on and glowed in the room. He tested the turntable by running his finger across the needle. Sound shot out of the speakers. He grabbed a worn cover of Motorhead, Ace of Spades, and set it up on the turntable. That opening bass line of Lemmy just took him back to his youth. Morgan's wife rolled her eyes and left Morgan to deal with his midlife crisis. Morgan just let the song play and he sang along with Lemmy word for word. This song was the anthem of his youth for him and his friends. Now he wanted to test the tape deck to see if it still worked. He looked through his collection. He knew the tape when he saw it. The tape that meant a lot to him growing up was Neil Diamond's Hot August Nights. This was his parents' favorite album that they had, and Morgan grew up listening to it. This tape is one he purchased even though his friends gave him crap for it. Morgan didn't care what they had to say about it, and he would play it just to piss them off, on volume 10, of course. He put the tape in and it played like it was brand new, sitting in the den just thinking back of being in the living room with his parents as a child. Now Morgan wanted to check the receiver. He never had a real antenna, he just used speaker wires taped to a window in his room. He did the same thing again and started adjusting the dial to a classic rock station. Morgan does not like modern rock stations and bitches about them spending too much time talking and don't play enough music. Also, most of the new music sucks and has no power or heart. There are new bands that play great songs, but they don't get played on corporate stations. Those owners play crap until people like it. After some adjustment up to the dial, he heard KSLX, your home of classic rock. And then they played AC/DC for those about to rock. Morgan turned it up and just enjoyed the moment. Shocked that everything was still working, Morgan decided to see if it could still record. Looking through his collection of cassettes, they were mostly of bands, he found one cassette he could record over. It was a mix tape that his girlfriend made for him back in high school. Since he had moved on, there was no reason to bring up those old memories. He took the cassette and then he got some scotch tape to cover up the knockouts that protect it from being recorded over and started recording songs being played on the radio. Working on his old skills, starting at that perfect time, cutting out the DJ's intro and only recording the song. Morgan was a master at this in his youth, and the skill came back to him after the first few songs. When he played the tape back, he was just amazed everything is still working like it did in his youth. The songs recorded over had some background sound, and Morgan just thought it was the previous songs that he recorded over. It didn't bother him. He called it a day. Just so many great memories and emotions. He was exhausted. That is my opening story. All of that information came to me by just reading the prompts and just kind of having a little nostalgia myself. Now what I'm going to do is grab scenario 1 and we're going to begin the game. We're only taking one turn, so what we're going to do is flip a card. We got the 8 of clubs. We will look in the rule book. We'll flip over to page 3 here that has this little chart that talks about what each suit is. A club is an anomalies, strange events that might unsettle or distress the character. Whenever an anomaly occurs, mark 1 instability. So I've already have 1 instability. I would just mark that on a piece of paper. You could also just use dice to track these numbers if you so desired. So we've got that taken care of. We'll open up our book and we will go to the 8 of clubs. We'll just read the information and then we will respond to it accordingly. You catch a sudden movement in the peripheral vision while playing a recording. What do you think you saw? So my story already ended with Morgan calling it a day. So I'm going to move my story forward. It is now the weekend. It's Saturday. Morgan's just sitting in the den. He's got the stereo on. He puts in the tape that he recorded over, started playing the songs that he had recorded. So he's just sitting there enjoying the music and just thinking back to his youth. Out of the corner of his eye, he sees some movement. Catches his attention. He turns real quick, but nothing's there. He just thinks his wife's up going about the house and he saw a shadow of her. He just dismisses it. So I'll just write that information down, and that will be my story moving forward. So that's an example of ghost transmissions. I think this is just a really fun game, especially if you grew up in a time or if your parents ever told you stories of growing up and recording mixtapes and listening to vinyl at home. It's just a great trip down memory lane for that. Or if you just want to explore it, you don't need to have had that experience in life to enjoy the game. The basic concepts are there. We know how to record stuff. We know what a turntable is. We know what a receiver is. And you can just have a fun game. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.